Hey there, math students, and welcome to our practice test video. It may say practice quiz at the top, but just scratch that out. This is your practice test. In this video, be sure to use it however helps you the most. You can fast forward, you can rewind, and you can pause as needed. You are in control. I'm going to start at number 1 and go through in order until we get to the end. So, let's start with number 1. Change 3/8 to a decimal. Now here, notice it says no calculator allowed. Be sure to show all your work by hand. So I need to be able to see how you're dividing. It was a few days ago, so you may remember that this top number, the numerator, goes inside the little division house. So in other words, it should look like that. And the 8 is going to go on the outside. So let's divide. Will 8 fit inside 3? No. So let's add some extra digits. We're going to put a decimal here, and we're going to put a 0 here. Okay, now will 8 go into 30? Yes. Let's see. 8 times 3 is 24. That sounds good. 8 times 4 is 32. That's too big. So let's go with the 3. Now I need to write that same decimal here, and I'll write the 3 there. You can put a 0 here too if you want to. 8 times 3 is 24. Here we subtract. 30 minus 24 is 6. And 8 doesn't go into 6 evenly. Let's go ahead and bring down another 0. Will 8 go into 60? Yes. 8 times 7 is 56. I could have said 8 times 8, but 64, that'd be too big. So we're going to stick with 8 times 7, 56, and subtract, and we're going to be left with a 4. Let's bring down another 0. Now, will 8 go into 40? Yeah, 8 times 5 is exactly 40. So it looks like we've finally gotten to a 0 here, which is awesome. That means we're done. And our answer is 0.375. Okay, let's go on to number 2. It says change 0.84 or 84 hundredths to a fraction. And when I say it like that, 84 hundredths, that's kind of a clue as to how to do this. When you have 2 decimal points, you're going to put it over 100. Just like that. So you would take the number and you would write it over 100. You're not done though, because you do have to simplify. So let's see what's going to fit. What number goes into both 84 and 100? Well, I'm going to go with a 4. 4 goes into 84 21 times, and 4 goes into 125 times. But if you wanted to start with 2, you could definitely divide both numbers by 2, and then you could just divide them by 2 again. Sometimes that's easier. So 21 over 25, are there any common factors there? Let's see, factors here are 3 and 7, but that won't go into 25. It looks like we're done there. So 21 over 25. Let's go on to number 3. In number 3, you're supposed to locate and label 3/8 and 0.84 on the number line. Now, I find it a lot easier to work with decimals when we're putting it on a number line like this. So instead of thinking of 3/8, I'm going to look up here, because we just solved it. It says 0.375. Now that I can put on this number line. So what is in the 10th place up here? Right there? 3, right? So you're going to find 0.3 here, and this will be kind of like your starting place. Now, if the decimal was 0.3, and that was it, this is where you would draw your dot. But it's not just 0.3, it's 0.375. So let's see, what would be halfway between 0.3 and 0.4? Halfway would be 0.35, but it's not 0.35, it's 0.37, so it's going to be a little further than halfway. So let's think of 0.37 as being maybe about right there. Okay, so just a little past halfway. In fact, it's more like 3/4 of the way, so maybe I should move it a little bit further. There we go. But I'm going to label it the way they wanted me to here, which is 3/8. So let's write our 3/8 right there. Okay, and now let's do 0.84. So what is in the 10th place here again? It's the 8, right? So that's our starting place. If the decimal had been 0.8, we would just put the blob right there on 0.8. But it's not, it's 0.84. So again, 0.85 would take us just halfway there. But it's not 0.85, it's 0.84. So let's lower that a little bit, maybe about right there. Put our blob right there. It doesn't have to be exact. You just have to show that you have an idea where it goes. 0.84. So those are our 2 locations right there. Let's go on to number 4. Now in number 4, you may find it is helpful to use those tables. And I included them in your assignment, and they will also be available to you during the test tomorrow. I just put a link there within the test instructions, so you should be able to access those. Just in case you're wondering, these are the tables that I'm talking about. They look kind of like that, and there's a couple of them. Okay, so complete the table. Now they give you the fraction of 1. That's really not a fraction. You know what? Let's start with 1/4, because I feel like this one is pretty concrete. So if you have a fraction of 1/4, how are you going to write that as a decimal? Well, how are you going to figure that out if you don't just know it off the top of your head? There's a couple ways. You could do 1 divided by 4, just like we did up there in problem number 1, and solve that. Or you could look at your table. Well, let's see, where is 1/4 on this table? Oh, here we go, 1/4. How do you write it as a decimal? 0.25. 0.25. Now to write that as a percent, well, it's on your table too, but I don't have to look at my table because I know that I just moved the decimal place over 2 spaces and then put a nice little percent sign, and then I'm done with that. Okay, so how am I going to write the 1 as a decimal? Is this even on our tables? Oh, you know what it is. How about that? It's right here. So because it says decimal, I'm just going to put 1.0. That's not what it says on the table. So if you just write 1 there, that's okay too. But if you want to put some decimal places, you would write 0.0. Now to do a percent, you need to move that over 2 spaces. So let's say 2 zeros. Move it over 2 spaces and it's going to be 100%. Yeah, okay, good. Let's do 1/3. Again, you might want to look at your tables if you don't have it memorized, but I happen to know that 1/3 will be 0.3, and that 3 repeats forever and ever, so we write the line above the 3. How am I going to write that as a percent? Well, let's move that decimal place over. If you think of it as this, if you had 0.33333 forever, and you move that decimal place over 2, the decimal would go here. So I'm going to say 33.3 and put the line here, percent. Is that what the table says? Where is 1/3? Well, they didn't put the line on that, so if you want to think of that line as optional, that's fine. I would definitely accept either way. Let's do 1/5. Now, as a decimal, you could think of it as what over 10 and convert that fraction to 2/10. But if you'd rather look at your chart, that's fine. What was it again? 1/5 is going to be 0.2. 0.2. And now if we move the decimal point over 2 places, it would go beside the 2 and then beside the 0, which I haven't written, but we know it's there, and it's going to be 20%. That is on your chart as well. I've lost it again, but you probably see it on there, right? 1/5, where are you? Here we go, 20%. Let's go on to 1/10. Now to write that as a decimal, you would just write 0.1 because you have a 1 in the 10th place. It's on the charts too, but I don't need it in this case. Let's move it over 2 spaces. For our percent, you're going to get 10%. Okay, so now let's do it a different way. Let's give you the decimal and you tell us what the fraction is. So 0.125. All right, let's go hunting on our chart. Oh, there it is, 0.125. That is going to be 1/8. And some of you may have a lot of these memorized. Some of you may have none of these memorized. That's okay. As long as you can use your chart or your memory, one or the other, you're in good shape. You see I'm filling out the percent now as I'm talking. We got to just, for the percent, always move it to the right 2 places. So that's all I did there. And I added the percent sign. Now what about this 0.5 repeating forever? Some of you may have memorized that that's going to be that number, in this case 5, and you're just going to put it over a 9. If you don't have that memorized yet, that's okay. You would go hunting on your chart and you would see 5/9. Now look at what they put for the percentage. 55.6. So let's visualize this a little better. They've moved their decimal point over 2 and put it right here. But instead of putting a 5 here, they know that the next number is a 5, so it's going to round that one up to a 6. 55.6%. Now, if you wrote 55.5, or if you wrote 55.5 with a line over it there, I would accept both of those as correct answers also. Let's go on to 90%. First of all, let's switch it to a decimal. So we just got to take the decimal point and move it back over to the left this time. So it's going to go over here. So your decimal is going to be 0.9. And we know that that can be written as 9/10. And if you need support, again, you've got your handy tables there. Okay, we're done with the first page. Let's go on and look at the second page. Now look at that. It says calculator is allowed. So some of you are like, yay! And some of you may think that this part is harder. I don't know. If you do, that is okay. Just a reminder, I've included a fraction calculator on your assignment page. Feel free to use that on this page as needed. It says simplify each expression. Round to the nearest hundredth if necessary. So that's something you would do if you're writing decimals, right? So the main thing you're going to be doing in these first couple problems is combining like terms. So remember, we can't combine something with a variable with something that doesn't have a variable. They just don't go together. They have to be like terms. So this one has an x in it. Let's look for something else that also has an x in it. Oh, here's one, minus 6.1x. So I'm going to underline it, and we're going to combine those two. Notice I also underlined the sign in front of it because that is kind of attached to that number. That's part of it. So what we're thinking here is negative 5.72x minus 6.1x. And any calculator will do for this. I'm going to use this one. So I've got negative 5.72. Don't try to put the x in your calculator. You just have to remember that in your own brain. We're going to go minus 6.1. Okay. Equals negative 11.82. And those were both x terms, so I'm going to put my x right there. Now, what else do we have? We have a plain old number here and a plain old number here. And as you remember, your math terminology, those plain old numbers are called constants, right? So let's combine our constants. It looks like we have a positive 2.5 minus 12.5. And that's going to give us just a nice round even minus 10. So we're going to write minus 10 right here. Now, I know this doesn't look like you're done. This doesn't look like the end of your solution, but it is. This is as simplified as you can get right here. And I'll tell you why. You have one term with an x, and you have one term that's just a constant, just a regular number. You can't combine them anymore. There is no equal sign, so it's not an equation that you can solve. So this is fully simplified, and that is all that you can do. Let's go on to number 6. Alrighty, with number 6, let's think about what we're going to combine. We have something with a b, something that's just a fraction, something else with a b, and then something else that's just a fraction. So let's combine our terms that have a b first. We have 3/4 b, and then we have minus 1/12 b. So I'm going to use my fraction calculator here. If you don't have a calculator that handles fractions well, feel free to use that fraction calculator that I gave you a link to. So we're doing 3/4, that was a positive number, and now we're going to do minus 1/12. Again, don't try to put the b in your calculator. Just keep that in your head for later when we start writing it down. So 3/4 minus 1/12 gives us 2/3. And now we write down that b. So we have 2/3 b. Now what else do we have? We have a constant here and a constant here. So let's combine those. Again, with my calculator, I'm going to do 1/3. And it's going to be minus 1/5. So minus 1/5. And that's going to give us 2/15. It looks like it's a positive number. So I'm going to need to write a plus sign here. And then my 2/15. Now, again, it may not look like you're done. It may look like a problem that still needs solving, but you have one term with a b. You have one term without a letter at all, so they can't be combined. Is there an equal sign here where I can solve an equation? No, there isn't. That means you are done, and you get to move on to the next problem. Okay, let's look at number 7. Okay, number 7, you've got some parentheses, which means what? We need to distribute. So this negative 6.2 is going to be multiplied by the 8k and by your minus 4.7. Once again, any calculator should be able to handle this because it's just decimals. So I'm going to do negative 6.2 times 8. And that's going to equal negative 49.6. And I didn't put my k in the calculator because the calculator's not going to handle that well, but I do need to put it here. All right, now let's do the second computation. Negative 6.2 times minus 4.7. We should put it in the calculator as a negative though. I use the words interchangeably, but your calculator might not be so flexible about it. So negative 6.2 times negative 4.7. And you're going to get positive 29.14. Because it's positive, you're going to write a plus sign here, okay? And then your 29.14. And then, is that all we need to do? Let's see, we have one term with a k. We have one term that's just a constant. Can't solve any equations here because there's no equal sign, so we're just going to circle it. We are done here. Let's look at the next one. All right, we have 3/5, and then we have these parentheses. How are we going to get rid of the parentheses? Let's distribute. So that's going to multiply to that, and it's going to multiply to that. You might want to use the fraction calculator I linked to, but I'm going to use this fraction calculator here. It's a lot easier to show on screen. So we have 3/5 times negative 3/7. Negative 3/7, and that's going to equal negative 9/35. And now with multiplying, you might find it's easier just to multiply by hand, because you just multiply the top. 3 times 3 is 9, 5 times 7 is 35. That would have probably been faster than me using the calculator. Maybe I'll do that on the next one. So 3/5 times 5/4 is next. So 3 times 5 is 15. And 5 times 4 is 20. And is it a positive or a negative number? It's a positive number because we had a positive number times a positive number. So we're going to put a plus sign there. Only thing is here, am I fully simplified? No, not quite. I'm going to divide everything by 5. So 15 divided by 5 is going to give me a 3. And 20 divided by 5 is going to give me a 4. I'm just going to kind of get rid of that. And my final answer is negative 9/35 plus 3/4. I forgot something, didn't I? Do you know what I forgot? Can you spot it? Maybe you already have spotted it. Yes, it's the variable. I forgot to write my x here. It should go right there. And it looks like I have a little extra space there. That's handy. So just make sure you put your x or whatever variable needs, wherever it needs to go, make sure you put it there. Let's move on to number 9. We're getting towards the end, guys. Okay, we have some parentheses here in number 9 again, so that means what? We need to distribute to get rid of those parentheses. So we're going to distribute the negative 6.2 to 2a and to the minus 2.1. Our calculator should work great for this. Let's go ahead and use it. Negative 6.2 times 2 is going to give us negative 12.4. And this time I'm going to remember to write my a. And now let's do negative 6.2 times negative 2.1. Negative 2.1, and that gives us 13.2. Notice the answer is positive, so I'm going to write a plus sign here. 13.02. And now this, we just bring it down, minus 3.8. So are we done? Or is there something else we can combine or simplify? Well, this is the only term with an a in it, so we really can't combine it with anything else. But this term is a constant, and this term is also a constant, isn't it? So we can combine those two terms and make one, and that would be really nice. So let's do that. So negative 12.4a plus, now we're going to do 13.02 minus 3.8. 13.02 minus 3.8 equals 9.22. Positive 9.22. Otherwise, I would need a negative sign there. Now are we done? Yeah, we've got one term with an a and one term that's just a constant and no equal sign or anything like that, so we are done. Let's go on to number 10, and then we've got a word problem left, and then we're set. So we've got parentheses again, which again means we need to distribute. Let's do it. That distributes there, that distributes there. Get your fraction calculator, whatever it is, and put it on in there. You get negative 1/2 times negative 4/3 equals 2/3. So our negative times a negative equal to positive, right? So let's write down our 2/3, and don't forget your variable. And now let's multiply these. Let's do negative 1/2 times 5 over 9, 5/9. That's going to equal negative 5 over 18. So I need a minus sign here, and then 5 over 18. Okay, now we need to bring down our 7 over 18, minus 7 over 18, right? And look at that, we already have a common denominator. Ooh, that's helpful. We might not even use our calculator for that one. So what am I talking about? Let me back up. First of all, are we done here? No, because we have these constants here that still need to be combined. There's no other terms with a y, so this one is done, but these two need to be combined before we're done. So let's just go ahead and bring down the 2/3 y. And now we need to be thinking, what is negative 5 over 18 minus 7 over 18? There's already common denominators, so let's just do it in our head. We have same signs, so same signs, add and keep. So let's add them together. 5 plus 7 is 12, and we're going to keep the sign, which is negative. Negative 12 over 18. Boom, that was pretty fast, except we do kind of have to simplify still, right? Both of these numbers are divisible by 6, so 12 divided by 6 is 2, and 18 divided by 6 is 3. So it looks like that's going to simplify to 2/3. Let's write it one more time just to make sure it's nice and neat and clear. 2/3 y minus 2/3. And now you are complete and done and just have one problem left. All right, let's read it. Josie is a scientist working on a COVID-19 vaccine. All right, Josie, hurry up. She's trying out 4 different formulas, all of which use different amounts of a special serum. The first formula uses 4/5 grams of serum. The second one uses 1.2 grams of serum. The third one uses 0.4 grams of serum, and the fourth one uses 9/10 grams of serum. How much serum total will she need to make the 4 formulas? So you have these 4 different amounts, and you need to know how much she needs total. So what do you need to do with these 4 different amounts? You need to add them. That's right. So let's do 4/5 plus, so there's that one, and then there's this one, 1.2, plus 0.4 plus 9/10. All right, so there are so many different ways to approach this. You could put everything in fraction form, you could put everything in decimal form, or you could just combine 2 at a time and change it as you go. For me, it's simplest just to put everything in decimal and then add it all up at once with my calculator. So that's what I'm going to do. I happen to know that 4/5 is the same thing as 0.8, but if you didn't know that, you could use your chart or you could divide. And this is already a decimal, I'll just bring it down. That's already a decimal, I'll bring it down. And then 9/10 will be the same thing as 0.9. Okay, now that I have all decimals, I'm just going to add them up. So 0.8 plus 1.2 plus 0.4 plus 0.9. And you're going to get a grand total of 3.3. And we are going to remember to put our units also. It looks like she measured everything in grams, so we're going to do 3.3 grams. And that is your final answer. If you have questions about anything, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.